Jambo, Gary, Jambo.
Jambo. Hey, that's an interesting chat.
I'm speaking Swahili.
I recognised it. I was
good.
I was retorting with the same word because it's the only one I know in Swahili.
That was it. We learned how to cook last week, and we learned how to speak Swahili. How good was that, Gary?
It was a great show last week. You never know what I expect in these shows. When Helena and her cat was good. Did you notice, Andy, this week Helena's cat's now got its own Instagram channel?
Oh, has it? I've not noticed.
Unbelievable.
I would have put up a ticker for it.
I was on the show once, and I think the flames went to his head. It's got its own Instagram. That was good fun last week, and learning how to speak Jambo and all that, and talking about Roger Mila and football, and you love all that and all.
It was brilliant, really good show. How you doing anyway, Gary? You well?
Yeah, feeling a lot better. I tidied myself up there in the past couple of hours. I was feeling a wee bit dishevelled, so done my hair, had a shave. I think I'm doing okay. Are you all right? You're looking really snazzy tonight, Andy.
Well, see, I don't have the big light on, Gary. I've got another wee light over here, and it's giving me a kind of warm glow. But the truth is, I went out for a run before the show, Gary.
What, in your best shirt?
Well, not my best shirt. I get changed afterwards, we get guests coming along. But I started about 10 weeks ago, Gary. I started that couch to 5K.
Oh, and have you done the 5K?
Done the 5K. I'm proud of myself.
Superb, Andy. It's not about time, it's about actually doing it. So well done, seriously.
Well, there was something that happened a wee while ago, but 12 weeks ago. Let's just say it gave me the proverbial boot up the backside to think about getting my health in order, Gary. So I thought I'll do the couch to 5K, and my two daughters dragged me around the local roads, and I'm now out running on my own 5K. That's all right, isn't it?
Amazing. So what's next?
Oh, I've no idea, Gary. But I'm here on time for the show. Paisley Community Trust Chat Show. We're out on Facebook. We are out on YouTube. We've got our social media going. And Gary, I can tell you some surprising numbers. Now, we know that we get good reach every single week with Paisley, but we've got some guests on tonight that are drawing a big crowd. And already, Gary, we've got over 350 viewers viewing our chat show already.
Seriously?
Check, Gary.
Oh, well, I'm going to be deadly serious then and not try any of my funnies.
No, thankfully we've got a couple of professional comedians on the show tonight, Gary, so we don't need to put up any of your jokes.
Oh, come on.
Maybe one or two.
350 folk in the room, Andy. There's got to be a couple of funnies for us to just get us on with comedy career on the road.
Absolutely. Well, a big hello to everyone. If you're joining us from Paisley, if it's the first time that you've watched the show, I'm Andy. That's Gary.
Yeah, that's our names there, Andy.
and we started this chat show 15 weeks ago. Paisley Community Trust, we thought, let's do something to shed a spotlight on some of the brilliant things that are happening in Paisley. And it's just quite literally grown arms and legs from there, Gary, hasn't it?
Absolutely has, Andy. And can I tell you the news?
What's the news, Gary?
The news just in, actually. I've just had a text.
Go on.
The real reason the Saints game's off tonight is they couldn't compete with our guests.
That's
so the Glasgow Celtic phoned up Fitzy and says, going to put that game off. Paisley Community Chat Show's got two brilliant guests on. We're going to stream the game live, but we can't compete with it. All this ball and golly thing going to Spain is a lot of crap. It's because of our guests, Andy. That's just text in.
And did the First Minister no intervene as well, Gary, with the football? Did she not get? We'll maybe hear a bit about that later on, Gary, from one of our guests.
I will maybe leave that one hanging, but that's hot off the press. Saints game cancelled because of Paisley Community Chat Show guests. There you go.
Fantastic. But it's just been great to see so many people mentioning their hellos on Facebook. We've got Sharon Kerr, first time watching. Sharon, give you a wee name check. We've got Nancy Ramsey. Oh, look at that face mask that Nancy's sporting. That's a cracker, that one, isn't it?
I like that.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
You get them.
Marion McMaster.
Hi everyone, all new viewers. Thanks for tuning in. all these first-time viewers. And Jackie's there again.
Oh, we've got a #1 fan. So Jackie's definitely in the fan club there with
Jackie.
Matt.
See that that believe that lol that's a true text. Tony Fitzpatrick's just texted me and said that's the reason the game's off. Come on, Jackie. You know me better than that to make things up.
And we've got there's some brilliant comments on social media tonight. I'm sure it's going to be a fun-filled evening this evening. We've got 2 cracking guests coming on tonight. And social media, you can follow us all or at paisleytrust.org, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about who we are and what we do, won't we, Gary?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I think. We're doing all that.
Something like that.
But tonight's about comedy, Andy, and of course we still want to talk about Paisley. Have you noticed anything in and around the town this week that you want to talk about?
Well, Gary, I ventured out for the first time this week down to Bianco. So I was down to Bianco and had a lunch with the family and my mother-in-law, and it was very nice, Gary.
Very good.
They've got all the appropriate protection in place. You feel very safe when you go in. You order, table service, everything's nice, clean and sanitised. But apart from that, I've not been out too much. I've not been over the threshold too much, Gary. But what about yourself? What have you spotted happening in Paisley?
Well, I cycled into the office today. I didn't realise how hot it actually was this morning. When I cycled in, it wasn't too bad. And as I was cycling by the TA building, I thought, this looks a bit strange. So on the way back, I took a picture, and I thought it was quite an interesting image. It was, and something for us to bring to the attention of our viewers.
Right. And you're going to ask me for the image, Gary, aren't you?
The one that I sent you earlier.
And said put that on the show, didn't you?
I said, and that's been an interesting thing to talk about, to put in the show. It's obviously been too busy, Andy. You've been too busy running.
I was out running, Gary. But if we can just do this, the magic of television, Gary. Look, you can't see the seams, can you, folks?
Right. What a production. The production values in this show. So I sent Andy that picture earlier on. And just to inform everyone, the TA is getting scaffolding out the front of it. It looks as if it's getting done up, looks as if it's getting shored up. So that's just a wee bit of news for everyone. So I wanted to talk about that, Andy. Also, maybe schools. You want to talk about schools?
Well, it's been quite a week and a half, 2 weeks for all the school kids, primary schools, and all the new P1s that are going into school, and then of course all our high school students going back. That was my own daughter back into 6th year for her final year this year at school. Odd environments. The schools have been off for about 5 months, Gary. Yeah,
but I was cycling along Glasgow Road on the way back for the office today, and it was 10 o'clock this morning, and the street was mobbed. It was mobbed with kids, and the social distancing with kids it's not really happening, is it?
Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, these big schools can take, over 1,000 students. And I think at the school that my daughter goes to, it was just 6th year and 1st year. And even then, it was busy, big intake of 1st year students. But I suppose as we try and get back to some form of normality, Gary, it's all uncharted territory. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I suppose going back to the football, and to be serious for a minute about the football, football is teetering on the brink at the moment. The way that that St Mirren had a case, reasons for that, well, I won't get into here. Aberdeen obviously did what they did and were in the pubs, and Nicola's not very pleased with them. And then, of course, the Celtic guy just been a total tube and gone to Spain and no telling anybody. So really, they're putting the whole of football in jeopardy, but it just hits home that we are still in a very fine balance with the COVID. Yep. We need to watch what we're doing. So I would implore, if you're going to listen to anybody, you've got to listen to me. Be really careful with the COVID.
Absolutely. Quite right, Gary. And just a big shout out to all of the organisations that are in the town of Paisley and Renfrewshire at large, all the community groups, obviously the businesses that have been affected. If you want to get in touch if you've got anything on that you want us to promote. Please let us know and we'll happily put it out on the chat show for you. We've had some wonderful guests. So if you want to come on about anything that you're doing, any help that you're maybe perhaps even needing or looking for yourselves, we'd be delighted to do that. So listen, thanks to everyone tuning in on Facebook, on YouTube. And I don't think we're broadcasting live to Twitter, but I know that there's some tweeting going out on Twitter, Gary. So it'll be interesting to catch up on that a little bit later on.
Did Twitter not have a Periscope thing a while ago and it's died a death?
It's away. Is
it gone?
I know, and we're no kind of TikTok guys, Gary, are we?
What's the tune? No, we can't do that because Trump will be able to have a word with us.
Oh no, Trump will have a word. So listen, Gary, this week is all about comedy. We've had a number of specials over the weeks, folks, and this is all about comedy tonight, Gary. So who have we got lined up on the show this evening?
Well,
Well, I'm asking you to tell the nation, Gary.
Oh, okay. Well, of course we've got
script here.
Of course, when we were looking at a comedy special with Piero Pieracini is a man steeped in comedy in the town, and I gave him a call a couple of weeks ago. I says, "Look, we're thinking about this, Piero. What do you think?" Pressure's on. He said, give me a few days, but within half an hour he came back to me and says, look, got the best guest for you, real boon for you to have Janie Godley on the show. So Piero Pieracini, going to talk about him in a wee minute. I'll do a wee bit of intro when Piero comes on, and Janie Godley and her Paisley connections. We're not getting Janie on because we like Janie or she's dead famous and she's doing the voiceover thing. All of that's brilliant, but she does have a Paisley connection, and that's why she's on the show.
Oh, fantastic. Two wonderful guests, and it's a real. It was just when Piero came back with that news that Janie was coming on. It was brilliant, and because of the connections, which we'll delve into a little bit later on in the show.
It's fair to say, Andy, you wet your pants, didn't you?
Gary, come on! Thought you weren't going to share that out.
It's a comedy show.
Now, disclaimer, folks. Disclaimer. There might be some swearing on the show.
And that's just for you.
Right? There might be some swearing. There might be some rudeness on the show, folks. And there might be some humour on the show. So if you don't like swearing, you don't like, rudeness, and you don't like humour, just switch off now. But apart from that, that's all the warnings over. Do you know, I Googled, Gary, if the 9 p.m. watershed affected internet broadcasts, and it doesn't, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Not that I could see, because we're not a television station. We're just streaming, Gary.
Well, we get mentioned in dispatches today on Twitter that it was Paisley TV.
Paisley TV?
Paisley TV. We've been promoted.
Well, listen, 9 p.m. watershed doesn't impact us tonight. So let's crack on with the show, Gary. Our first guest, okay. You've got a prepared introduction, which is awfully swanky of you.
Well, I know, and I think I try to do this for most guests. I think I've done this once before for Tony Lawler, and I read out a load of stuff. And this is similar for Piero. I mean, Piero, he is a legend in the town. But here's what I know about Piero, and I'll miss so much more about his life because I don't know him that well. I've just known him recently, but he's a good pal of mine. So Piero Pieracini, known for Chippy and Gordon Street, ex-chef, comedy MC, joke box proprietor, businessman, guy for the Paisley Development Trust that's helped with the Glen, the Russell Institute. He's an ex-publican of Hamish's House, the Bar Point. He's a Paisley legend. It's none other than Paisley's Piero Pieracini. You think I'm freezing?
Gary, no, you've missed one.
What was it?
One. After all those accolades, you've missed one.
It's no my da.
Christina's da. Piero, how you doing?
I'm brilliant, guys, brilliant. Thanks for having us on. What's all that legend business? I mean, a legend is somebody, well, I suppose, if you hang about long enough, to become a legend.
Think about long enough. And then we're not really recognising you tonight, Piero, with that moustache missing. I've just been doing my research, Piero. And maybe I'm in the middle of the research and just my memories are still there with you with the tash. You're looking amazing.
No, it was cheesy, to say the least. I mean, there was a cross between Adolf Hitler and Himmler. So, no, I had to go. Leg end, that's me.
That's
a leg end.
Donald, leg end. But as you say, Piero, you hang around long enough, then you get legend status in Paisley, and you've been in Paisley for a long time, and you've done so much. You're steeped in the Paisley history. Do you want to tell us a wee bit about your involvement in the town, Piero?
It's going to overrun.
Well, let's go back to the history, Piero.
Aye, right. Well, my grandfather came over in about 1907, and he came over with a guy called Nardini. Yep. So the two of them opened a chip shop in Paisley, and after a wee while, they were doing quite well. So Nardini decided to go down to Largs to set up business, and he became, Nardini's cafe.
Yep.
My grandfather stayed on in Paisley, had his family here. We all worked in the chip shop one time or another. But around about, can't remember when it was now, 1978, we had a chip shop and restaurant up at the West End. And it was called the Meadow, the Well Meadow Snacks. And that's where the story about the guy who, he came in and I just made a beautiful big batch of spaghetti sauce. The ragu was brilliant. Never mind this Scottish version. I'm a Scotsman, but I made good Italian ragu. And I was sitting looking at it, stirring it away with love and care. And I got an order for it, spaghetti bolognese. I said, "You're a dancer. Well, she's going to be good." So I was right there, and I got the spaghetti on, put the sauce over the top of it. In fact, I even took it out to the guy's table because I was that proud of it. So there I'm sitting there, and then one of the waitresses comes in and says, "Pierre, where's the tomato ketchup?" And I said, "Who wants tomato ketchup?"
Oh.
She says, "The guy that got the spaghetti."
Oh.
I said, "You will be fucking right." So I'm right out there, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm putting tomato ketchup on this." I said, "No, you're no." He says, "I'm paying for it. I'll do what I want with it." I said, "No, you're no. You have no paid for it. I'm taking it back. Get out." And that's what Jeannie was referring to earlier. It's a wee story that everybody tells about me when I'm half Jake,
Aye.
But it's true, very true.
I wasn't expecting the first swearing to be off you, Piero.
I did not swear, did I?
You did not. Nobody noticed.
I'm sure you said focaccia. I'm sure that's what you said. I think it was part of the.
I did say focaccia.
Yeah.
You're fine with these. Piero, you're fine with these stories on that social media. What's going on with you?
I know. It's just, it comes from the heart. I believe swearing is essential to get that very emphasis on the word that you're looking for. And nobody makes a mistake. I mean, the best exponent of that word is Billy Connolly, second only to Janie herself. So it means a lot. You can tell that I mean it.
Aye.
Anyway, comedy.
Aye, so so you were talking about the start of the up the Well Meadow and you're putting it your bolognese and then you went off in one.
I ran. I'm prone to do that. No, well, that was my life then. The chip shop, the restaurant, one thing or another. But I always had an interest in other things. I was quite pally with Sandy Stoddart and Ellen Farmer and all these, and they gave me a kind of an insight into what was needed in the town. So that's where I started developing that kind of side of it. But I carried on working in the restaurant. And in 1978, we opened a pub called the Bar Point. Now, folks say, what's the name Bar Point? Anything to do with? Well, we decided, that time I had a partner called Sergio Bernacchi. And we had, look, very nice.
There's a bar point right there for you.
I know, but that wasn't my Bar Point.
That wasn't the original one.
No. But we decided we wanted a place that we would like to go because we kept getting chucked out the old Bill, New Street. And the reason for that, not that we were drunk at all, it was the fact that we were playing backgammon in the Bull and they saw that as gambling. So we decided, what to do here is, let's open a pub that we can play backgammon in. So we did. And basically that was it. But it wasn't just about, the pub wasn't just about backgammon or food or even comedy. We had the backgammon tournament. We had the cricket team. We had a football team, a golf club that's still going. If you want to Google Bar Point Golf Club, there was a skiing club. We had the Johnson Silver Band use the pub, and we also played petanque at the back door. So it was an all-encompassing kind of thing. And I was very proud of it because somebody would come along and say, "Can we do that?" Aye, let's do it. And the next thing you would know, we would have a barbecue in the beer garden, and there would be bands playing and all that kind of stuff. Because I was always open for suggestions. But, and I suppose that led me into, see, my wife calls me an arty-farty guy. I'm into the arty-farty things in life. And, I do. But how do you define that? Anyway, I define it by the fact that I was working every weekend in the pub. And I kept on seeing the late night shows about Edinburgh Festival. How you get there was a compilation of things that were on late at night. I thought, I'd love to go there. I'd love to go there. I think it's a fantastic thing that, the street scene, the crowds all going about. And I thought I'd love to be part of that. What can I do? But anyway, I've got to work away. And then later I thought, hold on a minute. How can I just bring some of that here to Paisley?
Yeah.
And folks said, what are you talking about, Edinburgh to Paisley? What's all that about? At the start, I didn't have any idea of what I was doing, but I knew what I wanted to do. So I just, started these stories in the paper saying I was looking for comedians to be part of something new and all that kind of stuff. And funnily enough, one of the guys, they sent some of the photographs, Kevin Copstein, he's down in Australia now, and he was one of the ones who wanted to do a wee show. And I said, look, we want to have a show, we want to have maybe 4 or 5 guys. So he contacted some of his pals and that kind of thing. So,
when was that, Piero? What sort of year was that? And was there comedy scene in Paisley at that time, Piero?
There wasn't any, well, it was 1988. The first joke box was in June 1988. Right. Now, there was no regular comedy clubs in the west of Scotland at that time. The Stand in Edinburgh opened 8 years later, and the Stand in Glasgow opened 4 years after that. So we were the first regular comedy club. But once I started getting into it, I got in touch with Karen Corrin. She runs a Gilded Balloon in Edinburgh. So we kind of talked to each other about things, and she gave me some advice and one thing and another. And what we came up with was, if we were getting an act coming up from London, Ireland or something like that, I would have them as a headliner on the Friday, and she would have them as a headliner on the Friday. Did I say Friday or Saturday? I would have them as Saturday. What? No, right, that's good. So through that, we got some great acts up, and it was exciting times. It really was, because when you're seeing a guy or a person on the stage, you don't know whether they're going to be funny or whether they're going to go into better things. And at the time when we had people like Reginald D. Hunter, Ed Byrne, even Greg Hemphill, you didn't know what they were going to be. But you could tell they were good and you could tell they were funny, and that's all that mattered to me, because they were entertaining my customers. So, God, look at that.
A few wee pictures back from the...
Who's that guy in the middle?
That's no me. No.
Is that the Go Compare guy in the left there?
The broken chair guy.
Just as you were chatting there, I was thinking of the parallel that draws with being groundbreaking in Paisley with comedy. The parallel that draws with the bungalow that used to be in Renfrew Road, and in and around Paisley, it's been real groundbreaking stuff. And with you kicking all that off in the late 80s, when it's amazing that Paisley was never funny before that, and it only started being funny when you done stuff.
Well,
you never had a sense of humour in Paisley.
I'm not exactly funny, but I tell you, the bungalow. Well, everybody knows the story about that. How we managed to get all the punk bands that were banned from playing in Glasgow. They came to Paisley, And if we had a comedy on that night as well, it worked. But
Yeah.
it was two small things that you could have grown from that. During that time, Paisley was first to have a Mayfest before Glasgow did. And we took part in that. We not only had comedy, we had live bands. We had Liz Lockhead came and did some poetry. We had some one-act plays. We had a leather worker sitting in the corner, fiddling away, because it was all that. I'm trying to create that atmosphere that you would have found in Edinburgh. Just turn a corner and there's something going on.
And looking back, Piero, and being, as you said, not knowing what these guys are going to go on to, and then noticing years later as they look back fondly on your input to their career and kickstarting their career, there's some amazing names came through the joke box at the Bar Point.
Aye. I mean, there were some odd ones as well. I don't know what Reverend Obadiah Steppenwolf was doing these days.
That's an amazing name.
He was like an American preacher. He was a kind of near to the knuckle American preacher. That's all I can really say. So I've done that theory tonight.
Piero, there was one in your list, Bill Bailey. Is that the Bill Bailey that's still doing the rounds, the kind of bald chap with a longish hair that does the musical comedy as well? Him?
He had more hair then.
Oh,
yeah.
Mitch Ben. Sorry?
Oh, it's fantastic. I didn't realise there was such a brilliant list of people that came through the joke box.
Again, I supplied you with a wee list, but my memory these days is not as good as it used to be. And there must be some folk I'm missing there to my shame. People like Stu Hu and Parrott and Bruce Morton, they were there right at the very beginning. And of course, Fred McCauley's first paid gig was in the joke box. But I've got to be honest, once I introduced him to Karen Coren, she took him to where he was, where he is now.
Aye. Good old Fred McCauley. And
I find that interesting that, again, the parallel, you get flung out the Bull Inn and comedy starts up the West End and the punk gets flung out of Glasgow and it starts in Paisley. I mean, all of that then sparks something in somebody, and you took that and you made it something really special, and you've been doing that across the whole of Paisley as long as I've known you, Piero. Anybody throws something at you, and I've never heard you saying, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. That's crap."
No. Oh God, I can't remember her name now. The slug in the bottle lassie.
Yeah, the market thing. I remember that.
Aye, well, we just opened up in the high street, and I was putting some posters up, and just tidying up and things like that. And she came and said, "You need to do with this." I said, "Well, yeah, it's a place." She goes, "It's lovely. It's really nice. You can see this in the West End of Glasgow." Oh, thanks very much. That's very nice. You ever heard of a pop-up market? I said, "No. What's a pop-up market?" She said, "Right, okay, I'll tell you." So anyway, 2 Saturdays after that, we had the pop-up market. And that was the start of the slug in a bottle market. And it was great because she had all the contacts with the people that made stuff. And I had a space. Yeah. That's all I believe the pub is a space. If somebody comes in and says, "Can we have a committee meeting?" Aye, no bother. "Can we have a Cayley night?" Aye, carry on.
Aye, just give it a go.
What it's all about.
And you've always been that way inclined, Piero. You've always had your doors open to the community in Paisley, and you've been a big supporter, a big advocate of lots of different initiatives in Paisley. So it'd be good to get a wee flavour of some of the other things that you've been involved in with the Paisley Development Trust, Russell Institute, and so on.
Right, aye. Well, Paisley Development Trust was again, it grew out of knowing Ellen Farmer, Sandy Stoddart, and a few other local folk who said, "We need to do something. We need to create a force that will do some good for Paisley." So what are we going to do? Anyway, we decided we would form. It was the Paisley Development Association at the time.
Right.
But at the same time, the Development Trust Association was emerging. So we decided to become part of that. And one of the thing that launched the Paisley Development Trust was for interest in the Glen Cinema. Now, it's a very delicate thing. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know whether you're offending anybody. So first thing we did was get in contact with the survivors at the time. And that's about God, I can't remember now, 15 years ago or something.
Yep.
Anyway, we contacted them and we sat and had a chat. What do you think? We're planning to have some sort of memorial, sort of commemoration type thing. We don't know what yet, but we want to know what you think about it. And to a person, they all agreed that there should have been something done before now. Although there was the memorial out in Hawkhead, there wasn't anything that they could go to. I mean, folk were older now. I mean, these folk would have difficulty getting up the town.
Aye.
So there should be something central that we could go to and say, well, we're planning on doing some. We'll keep you informed along the way and we'll do it that way.
Yep.
Right, great. So we had them on board and we felt we had carte blanche to do what we wanted to do, which was to remember the Glen Cinema, remember the tragedy of it, but also inform the future about it, because a lot of good things came out of it. I mean, the legislation was changed to protect the doors opened out the way rather than that. In those days, they opened in the way, and that's what caused a lot of the crush in the Glen Cinema.
Yeah.
So from there, we did that. We had an exhibition just above the Liberal Club, smashing big space up there. Sadly underused, but we had and it was great. We invited a lot of folk along. We had an exhibition going on for. In fact, we had to extend it because we had so many visitors to it, and everyone signed their visitors book. Everybody was impressed with it, so that gave us impetus to look at other things. But we did several things. We had an open air theatre piece called Buddies at War, and it was in the Fountain Gardens. It was in December the 21st. It was freezing cold, but everybody enjoyed it. You know, it was in a round piece. The people were in the middle, the audience were in the middle, and the action was going on round about. So that was really interesting. The best thing was we got a wee bit of recognition from the Glasgow Herald. There was a review of it, which they said it was an astounding piece, but could have been done at a warmer time.
Warmer time of year.
Yeah, but again, it's just a wee knock into the thing about Paisley. You know, there's something else good going on in Paisley. A wee thing like that. And
then, to bring you right up to nowadays, then you've been in the Paisley for a long time. What's your reflections on your time in Paisley and when it was bustling, where we are now, and what your predictions or your hopes and fears maybe for the future of the town?
I've never had fears for the town. Never fear. I mean, I get despondent sometimes. You hear news that you think, oh no, that's not going to happen. But there's always that undercurrent of something will come along. And then you guys are the perfect example. I mean, the work you have put in with the cinema, especially in Baker Street in particular, that gives an awful lot of folk a vision, enthusiasm, and the desire to do something. Yep. So, you know, you guys have got a lot we've got a lot to be thankful for in you two guys. But I see...
Enough of that.
I don't need false modesty. No, honestly, I used to love driving through the town when it was chock-a-block, because you could see all the folk and you could wave to your pal and, how you doing? I'll catch you tomorrow, all that stuff. Being out with the water, cruising down the town, you know. But the pedestrianisation, it was intended well. But it didn't really work. And I long for the day that they open it up fully.
But to bring you right up to speed, I know that the joke box has always been in your psyche, and you wanted to do something to bring that back.
Yeah.
And there was you had announced there was some gigs coming back. Can you tell us about that, Piero? And light in the mood, and we'll talk about comedy.
Aye, certainly. We talked about having a joke box revival. I mean, I'm retired now from the pub game, and I got to with Alan and Tommy from the bungalow. And what about adding to your roster here? You got live bands, you're doing this, that, and the next thing. What about wee bit of comedy? Yeah. So I had lined up Fred McCullough to do a gig, and I had lined up Ginny to do a gig. And it was going to revive the joke box. It was going to be regular comedy in Paisley again. And I wanted to kick off with two big names. But unfortunately, due to COVID, I got hot need. So we've all social distance. We're doing this now instead of having a chat round a beer.
So it's on hold until it comes back, until we can start getting back out again, Piero. Well, I've just noticed Gary's turned into Max Headroom right now. Gary, can you still hear us and see us okay?
I can hear all right. Can you hear me?
You've just gone into treacle mode, Gary. As long as you can hear us,
Right,
it might be a bit of lag, it might catch up, but as long as you can hear us.
I can hear, yes.
Aye, good stuff. Right, okay, well listen. Right, Piero, what we're going to do is we're going to hold on to this moment right now because we're going to bring into our next guest because I think we've had a fantastic lead up in terms of the Joke Box revival, and I'm going to show the image that Gary sent me through. Janie Godley Live plus special guest, the Joke Box revival presents. So without further ado, let's bring our next guest on. Oh, we've lost Gary, but let's bring our next guest on. Janie.
Hey, Piero.
Hey, Jenny.
I've been sitting here going, when do I get on? You know what I'm like, Piero. I used to stand backstage in your, the atrium bit at the back and go, Piero, when do I go on? Piero, when do I go on? Constantly.
I know you're in. You've got another engagement, Janie, at 9 o'clock.
So I've been shouting, guys, the time. I need to hurry up.
Absolutely, Janie. Welcome to the Paisley Community Chat Show.
It's lovely to see Piero, and my relationship with Paisley goes right back to 1997 when Piero ran the Belhaven Comedy Festival competition, and I was a very brand new comic. I mean, fresh out the box comic. And the thing I loved about Piero was, like me, he was a publican, so him and I tuned into each other straight away. He wasn't a comedy promoter to me. He was like me. I had a pub in the Carlton, exact same thing as Piero. We had a bus run, we had a chess club, we had a community, and Piero's ethos in the pub was exact same as mine. So we just gelled as soon as we met. And I remember the first time I went for that competition and I was brand new. And there wasn't the thing is I was doing a job that nobody else had done. There wasn't many female stand-ups, Piero. I mean, there was female comedy actresses like Dorothy Paul and Elaine C. Smith and Lynn Ferguson, but there wasn't many straight stand-up Scottish women. And I was doing a job that I had never seen done before, really. And Piero invited me to come and take part in this competition. And I will never, and I've still got it. The awards, I won the Belhaven comedy competition that night, and I got this award, and it lay on my daddy's shelf right up to my daddy died, and I brought it home, but he always got my award, and it was the Belhaven was the first one. And Piero said to me, do you want to come and host this gig? And I was like, fuck yeah. And I was there for years it was, Piero, wasn't it? It was a couple of years.
Okay, right. I tried to get rid of you once or twice, but it wasn't working.
Is what?
I said I tried to get rid of you once or twice, but it wouldn't work. You kept on coming back like a bad penny. And I hosted it for about 2 or 3 years. It was every Saturday night. And he's right. We had like Gavin Webster, we had Mitch Benn, we had Bill Bailey, we had Parrot, Fred, Stu, we had Joe Heenan, we had Big Raymond Mearns, wee Des McLean, lots of stalwarts of the Scottish circuit all started. And Bar Point was the gig to play. It was a really hard gig, but a really good gig, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like theatre in Edinburgh where the audience were sat away from you and they were all drinking like a nice wee glass of wine. It was like my pub in the Carlton, so I loved it. It was rough, it was ready, it was full of balmy bastards and brilliant people, and they were this close to you. But the funny thing is I loved it because I kind of endeared myself to all these crazy people. Good people like my pub, crazy people, but good people. And then occasionally one arsehole would wander in and I would be on stage and the place was heaving. You couldn't get room, Piero. You couldn't get a space.
and one arsehole up the back would shout, "Oh, it's a woman, shut up," and the whole audience would turn on him and go, "What did you just say to Janie there, you dick?" And they were there. It's great. I love that. And I still come across those audience members. I still get people come to the Fringe or meet me and say, "I remember you at Bar Point." And I'm like, yeah, that is where I learned my comedy skills, in Bar Point.
Fantastic. You honed your skills on the Paisley crowd, Janie.
Yeah. And I've been back and did the Paisley Town Hall and all that stuff. But Piero's was... It's held in such good memory of me because it's when I started out, and sometimes I was rough as fuck and it was awful, but he had faith in me. They kept saying, "You're fine, just keep going."
And we look like we've got Gary back. Gary, can you still hear us? His connection is no very good tonight. But Gary, if you can hear us, chip in when you can. But Janie,
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I know.
Well, let Piero ask me questions. He'll be good at it.
Well, we were just talking about the Jukebox Revival, Janie, just before we brought you on. So that's obviously, it's a good thing for Paisley, isn't it? And a good thing for comedy.
Absolutely. I mean, Piero put Paisley on the comedy map. I went to London and I was doing gigs in London. And the first thing people said to me in London, comedians said to me is, "Oh, have you done Piero's gig?" So he was famous in London for having this solid rock, brilliant gig. He paid good money. He looked after the comedians. He was the antithesis of every comedy promoter because they're usually sleazy arseholes that nobody likes. And they're
all right.
they're usually cliquey and they have their own wee favourites. And I mean, that's really big in the comedy circuit, is the cliquiness. And they've always got their favourites, and they've always got, doesn't matter how good you did on stage, you're not getting a gig because you're no one of us. Piero didn't have that. If you showed your chops on stage, and it was all a meritocracy with Piero, if you showed your chops, even if we didn't like you and you were a complete dick, if you were a good comedian, you get a gig. And that's how he worked it. And that's why I loved him. He worked on absolute pure meritocracy, where a lot of other comedy promoters don't work on.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
There's also some nights that, because I told you, I had an affinity for arty-farty folk.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
We were all, guys would be coming from Edinburgh to do a gig in Paisley. Yeah. And then just after they'd been on, they felt great, where's the chippy? I want to get a fish supper. I said, well, I'll make you some spaghetti.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I think the word got round right enough, because every time we had another headliner, they'd come in and go, "Hey, Pierre, where's the chippy?" And I said, "No, I'll make you spaghetti." And it just went round and round and round. So now
we all knew we could Piero to make pasta for us. We all knew the trick. We'd all come in with that big, "I've not had any dinner, Piero." Piero would make his dinner. We all knew he was a soft touch for the pasta dinners.
Okay.
But you paid good, Piero. You treated people good, and that was what made you stand out different. You treated people honourably and you treated them on merit. And that's still, to this day, quite rare in comedy clubs.
Well, fantastic. I think you should change your record.
Somebody's just posted up a wee message, Janie. Now, I think you're aware of this one. You've made it onto Caroline Gormley's Bog Roll of Fame.
Ashley and I are on the toilet paper. It's great. I mean, and Piero that's brilliant. Look at wee honey, wee arsehole. And Piero knows that I do a bit of art as well. And I paint and draw as well, and I write plays. He was always very encouraging. What was that picture freaked me out. What was really weird is do you remember, Piero, when we did the festival? You had me and Bill Bailey sitting on a graveyard at the back, waiting to go on. We used to have gravestones. Well, there's gravestones at that arts bit, that abbey or whatever it is that we used to do comedy.
Oh, well, all right, it was slapped.
There was this gravestone. We were sitting in a gravestone going, fuck's sake, we're sitting in a
That's an apocryphal tale.
Well, whatever. But yeah. I still love Paisley. I took a picture of Paisley at Christmas, and it was all those beautiful lights overlooking the canal, and everybody on Twitter thought it was Venice, and I kept saying, "No, that's Paisley." That's Paisley.
Yeah.
Thought, is that Venice? No, that's Paisley. That's Paisley at Christmas. It's just so beautiful, and it kind of reminds me of the Carlton where I had a pub. It's a small community, and it's distinctive from where it is round about it. And the Carlton was like that. There was a lot of parallels with that. There was a lot of arts and artists like Matt McGinn. There was a lot of folk clubs. There was everything in the Carlton. And it was the exact same in Paisley. That same sort of, people were proud of it. People wanted to save it. People wanted to take care of it. And I think that Paisley has that as well.
Can I do a wee shout out?
Go for it, Piero.
It's my pal John Stevenson.
Right.
He helped me great at the beginning, and he did a bit of comparing as well. Total amateur, no comedy background, but he used to start off the show really, really well. And my favourite wee joke of his was he used to come on with hush puppies. He says, "I wish these were real puppies because I hate fucking dogs." Do you remember
that? Do you remember that night, Carol? We had an act. I still tell this story on radio. I've told it on Radio 4. I've told it everywhere, and it happened in Paisley. Every time somebody asks me the worst heckle you ever saw, happened in Paisley. Not to me, and I won't name the act it happened to, but there was a girl come on stage, and she was dressed as a girl guide. And she had this sort of character act. Me and Piero, I can't tell this for laughing, Piero. Me and Piero were standing inside. And she was on stage. Look all was happening. She was dying. And he was looking at me and I'm looking at him. And the audience used to look at me as if it was my fault they were there. They're like, "What? Why did you bring her?" It's amazing, Piero. But anyway, she's dying and she's doing this dip thing and she's dressed as a girl guide. And one guy stood up and he shouted, "Hen, what do you want? What do you want, Fierce?" And she just didn't understand what she was doing. And she asked the comedian, "What do you want?" Like they were all being held hostage. Piero and I, and he was no nimble footman, ran through into the back bit, fucking holding each other with laughter. And this poor lassie just left and she went out the front door. But it was just the audacity of an audience member, complete silence, a guy in a football top. "What do you want, Hen? What is it you're doing?"
Now, Janie, you know that heckles are always the test of any good comedian, don't you? But now it's moved online and we've got trolls and they're a different breed. How do you deal with them, Janie? Because there's been a few that you've been putting down recently.
I keep being really, really, really successful. That really annoys men with football tops who don't have a name. They're like, "You're shite, nobody likes you." I'm like, I'm getting banged harder than a faulty washing machine door and I've just cashed the cheque for the National Theatre. Up you dick. So just be successful. That really, really annoys people. When people say you're no funny, I'm like, tell it to my bank manager, my accountant, and my agent. Don't tell me this shite, you know.
You got a marvellous turn of phrase. Yeah. Just saying, you got a marvellous turn of phrase.
I have indeed, Piero. But it's just when it's the audacity that people. The thing is, I get men, and it's usually always men, not always #always men, but usually always men who come online and say, "You're really shy. You should stop." And I'm like, weirdly, I don't take advice for fucking Archie McGlumford for the pub down the road in a shell suit. Weirdly, I've never taken career, financial, or VAT advice for an arsehole whose avatar's a cat. That's never been my thing. You don't know, man. I used to run a pub for 15 years in the Carlton. This is a Tuesday to me. Up away and jizz in your mom's cat. Moving on.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, Janie, I mean, I'm still, Gary, are you with us at all, or have you taken a seizure? Are you okay? Oh, right, no, Gary's broken.
I'm here. I'm
there,
here.
Gary?
I don't know if you can hear me or if anything's going on with me tonight.
picture doesn't match with your words, and it looks like you're stuck in the Matrix.
Just take the piss out of me. It's all right.
Now,
I'll be a straight man tonight.
Janie, we've been seeing you and hearing an awful lot of you as the internal monologue for Nicola Sturgeon. So going to tell us, because we've seen so many comments tonight on social media about some of the kind of catchphrases, some of the characters that you've created. Going to tell us all about that, and you know the kind of what you've been doing and what
I do is just like all the Sandras down at the caravan with Big Teresa, gone back to Torremolinos, and Frank get the door, and I'm up to high do, and I just make up catchphrases and I enjoy them. But Piero struck on something. You just said something earlier, Piero, about when punk bands were banned from Glasgow and they had to play in Paisley. I'm writing a new book, and in the research of my new book, that came up. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the new book's about, but there's a bit about it in the 70s, and the research threw up. Do you remember when punk bands? I went, no, I don't remember that. She went, but they are allowed to play in Paisley. And I said to my researcher, I bet you that was Piero, and I was right. So,
oh, you weren't right. No, Bungley was a fabulous place. Wasn't it,
so I'm writing a new book, which is fiction, because my autobiography, I just get 700 of them through the door today to post out.
I saw the boxes. You tweeted that up earlier on, Janie.
Yeah, it's insane. So my autobiography came out 15 years ago, and it's still selling. It's one of the #1 bestsellers. And I'm writing a new book. I got a new book deal, and I'm writing fiction now.
All right, okay.
So yeah, and I wrote a play for the National Theatre, and that went viral. I wrote 2 plays called Alone and Alone 2. You can get them on YouTube. And over 3 million people watched them, and it was a real serious theatre piece. But yeah, the catchphrases was the question you asked me. I don't know. I just make shit up in my head.
And is there any characters that they're based on? I mean, I think everybody wants to know who Frank is.
Everybody knows a Frank. Everybody knows a big Davy Dunsmore that says he met Elvis at Press Week. Everybody knows an Isa McNamee, and everybody knows, you know, a big Senga McDade and Philomena McClatchy. We all know those women that did the Pippity parties and brought back the Capa de Monte to Spain. We know they women existed, you know. And you know, they always need to run a bus run for the Waynes, get the Waynes in for a Pippity party and all that. And so, you know, there's lots and
Gary's now having to write help me notes.
That's what it looks like.
Help.
I don't know what that is, Gary.
My net's broken. And then, of course, the big soup pot, Janie. I was doing a wee bit of research earlier on. You were saying the soup pot is the hub of the community, and that's what we're all about. But I mean, the soup pot is obviously a feature in some of your comedy, but it's been a part of your life as well, Janie, by the sounds of things.
The soup pot is the heart of it. It's like Piero's family. They will have had a pot where they made the tomato sauce, and it would have just been tomato sauce is loosely based on, you know, your pasta sauce. That would have been that one pot. And it was like when I was a wee girl, there was a big soup pot, and you could have bathed a baby in it. It was that big. And when anybody died or anybody get engaged or a wedding or a party, you had to borrow the big soup pot. It goes back to the days of poverty. It was like a suitcase. Not everybody had a suitcase. You had to borrow a suitcase for somebody, and every family had a big giant suitcase, no wheels on it because nobody was bright enough back then. And then everybody got a Lenny the suitcase or the soup pot. And it's just a kind of community thing that I find we need to hark back to, because every night we have to put on our emotional life jackets and keep ourselves afloat and look after each other. So that's magic.
And we've lost Gary again. I think he's going to put another 50p in the Wi-Fi meter, and he'll hopefully be back again.
Then on the back of the telly. And
there's definitely something.
So get 50p in, clink, clink.
and of course, you've now got your own merch as well, Janie.
Yes, we launched the Frank Get the Door merch, but we've also got the Your Ma's Soup, which is based on the Andy Warhol Campbell's picture. That's the new merch that's up as well. And we raised £23,000 for the STV appeal with the merch, and we raised like £13,000 for Carers Trust Scotland with the other merch. And to this day, when you buy merch from my website, 20% of the profits go to Carers Trust. So we try and every bit of penny I make, I try and give back a wee bit. Guys, I'm going to have to split my clicky pen.
I'm back for the end.
I've got a live stream at 9 o'clock on Facebook.
What have I missed?
Nothing. I pulled my top up and everything. You missed a lot of it. I get my back
for goodness sake.
Gary.
You never, did you?
I did. Everybody saw my nips.
I missed all the best bits. What I was trying to do with my message, Janie, was asking about me minted.
Oh, yeah, that was a character that she was an inspirational speaker. Me minted here. Look up to the stars, look down to the ground. Look up to the stars, look all around you. If a door closes, open another one. It's just
She was my favourite. That's when I started following you. And, I've always wondered who that was based on. Are you allowed to say?
No, I don't think it's based on one person. I think it's based on a lot of the idiots that go on the internet and go, "Are you sad? Cheer yourself up with melon." They're like, "Shut the fuck up. Get in there. My man's no well." Like, "Are you sad? Open another door." I'm like, "You've obviously never had to nearly pump the Provi, man, to get through the week. Shut up." So,
I'm glad I made it to the end, and I'm sorry I missed the final moments of your performance.
A jumper off, you missed it all.
You'll need to watch it and catch up, Gary.
I need to watch myself as a robot.
Right, guys, I'm going to go. Piero, I spoke too much again, like I did every Saturday night back in the 90s. All I did was talk.
Janie, you've been wonderful. Listen, good luck with your live stream tonight, and thank you so much for coming on the Paisley Community Chat Show. It's been a real pleasure.
Cheers, darling.
Thanks, Janie.
See you later on.
Leave studio.
Just click the leave studio, so that's you, Janie.
Oh, fuck up. My computer doesn't have it. I have to.
What an exit.
Anyway, what happened there?
Oh, Gary, you were the Gremlins were at it, Gary.
I don't know what happened there. I turned it off earlier, Andy, and turned it back on, and I was still didn't have a clue what was going on there. See, during that period, I told all my best jokes.
Oh, we missed them all. We missed every single one of them, Gary. But you're back, thank goodness. Piero, what energy has Janie got? She's just non-stop, isn't she? She's brilliant.
She hasn't stopped. I mean, ever since the first day I met her, she's been like that. And you've got to try to get a word in. But, you're laughing too much anyway. So it's a win-win thing. But eventually, you've got to calm her down and we get in there.
Fantastic.
And Piero, you've obviously got a great rapport with that woman.
Well, as I say, we worked together for a long, long time. And, every second Saturday at one point we were doing. So, she would suggest comedians, she would suggest some folk that were good. And she didn't just say that just to get them a gig, because she knew fine I would give anybody a gig. If somebody said they were good, that's good enough for me. And we did have in fact, there was very few bad comedians. They were maybe no up to speed yet. Maybe that was it. But
you're very generous with your comments, Piero.
Not at all. I tell you, I loved the early days before we had a regular compere. As I say, John Stevenson, he came in and helped us out, helped me out really well. But I enjoyed getting up and introducing the show. Not so much. I enjoyed getting up. I mean, if I put it another way, I was Al Murray before Al Murray was Al Murray.
You reckon he based his character on you then, Piero? Is this the big news announcement?
Without a doubt, he must have seen me when he was about 12. But no, it was good because, like him, I mean, I would say, right, I'm the boss. This is my pub. It's great to be boss. So it is. I mean, I can tell you get out, you've got to go, or I'll phone the police. So it was just a wee daft thing just to get folks' attention while I introduced the real comedy. But no, I enjoyed it. Enjoy making it. And
listen, You've got your fan club in tonight, Piero, and this latest one I've got to put on the screen for you from the Provost. Piero, hello, lovely to hear from one of Paisley's most distinctive gentlemen. There you go, Piero.
I had the honour to receive an award from Lorraine, and she knows me so well because she said at the time of the award, he's probably squirming in his seat, and Mars was making buttons because I didn't believe it. I mean, why me? You know, as this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. If you're a legend, you've been about for a while, and somebody's got to give you something.
From humble Italian roots, Piero.
No, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth.
To be the boss. That's good connotation.
To be the boss.
All right. No, I wasn't in that side of the family. I was the comedy side, or the gangster side.
Well, listen, Piero, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the programme tonight, and thank you so much indeed for setting up Janie and bringing her onto the show. But together, it was great to see those sparks getting rekindled and all the good times that you obviously had together. And, you know, we're delighted to hear that the Joke Box is going to be making a big comeback in Paisley as and when we can get back out to some sort of normality. So you can always count on the trusty support and promote everything that you're doing, Piero, as always.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a real honour, and I'm chuffed because had a great wee night.
That's good, Piero. You can go and enjoy your pasta with your tomato sauce and your glass of red.
No, I'm going to have a Peroni actually, but never mind.
Good man. Well, listen, I'm going to click a button. You can either stay with us in the kind of black and white room whilst myself and Gary finish up the show, or if that Peroni is just ready to be taken, we'll catch up with you later on, Piero. All right, sir?
Okay, marvellous. Thanks,
see you later
guys.
on. All the best, Piero. Take care. Yes. Cheers. Bye. Oh, Gary, what a show!
It was good fun watching it.
Yeah, it was. There was a lag on it as well, so the quite funny. It was Janie would obviously say something funny, we'd all laugh, and then a minute later, you'd laugh, Gary.
Oh dear, that's never happened, Andy. We've either kicked out or we've had trouble before. But I don't know what happened there, Andy. There's something no right in the house.
Something no right. It's no often that we have troubles like that, but I think Janie broke the internet tonight. Maybe that's what it was, Gary. We had so many folk watching, so many wonderful comments coming through. I think just the internet traffic for Paisley Community Trust Chat Show was just too much. Fell over.
And we've not got a good enough cable up this way, obviously.
Aye, well, you need to. You on dial-up, Gary? You got a dial-up modem?
I'm a computer serve.
AOL. Well, listen, you're back. You're working okay now, Gary. Now that the show's nearly finished.
The good thing about Janie is her patter's just brilliant patter, and it comes out just like that.
Oh, absolutely. She's fantastic.
That was really funny. And Piero's a brilliant guest. He knows he's a legend. He just hides his light under a bushel.
He's far too humble, and he's done so much for the town. And you know, Piero's one of the constants in the town. He's always there. You can always go to him for advice because you can bet your bottom dollar he's been there, seen it, tried it, knows the best ways, knows the things to avoid, and he's gracious with his support. That's the really good thing. You know, he's got that kind of open door. And you know, with the comedy coming back in Paisley, it was good to hear from Janie that the Paisley was a tough audience. That was where they honed their craft.
I wouldn't be wanting to be in a tiny wee club shouting at Janie Godley, would you?
No, they knew anyway. No, or anyone. But you know, it's going to be good that if the Joke Box, as and when, can make a proper comeback.
Well, I know the two gigs that were booked, Andy. The gig that Piero put together for the bungalow. One was Fred Macaulay, and one was Janie Godley. Obviously, he's two pals, and he was wanting to build on that. And of course, COVID got in the way. So once we're back up and running, I had a chat with Tommy today. Actually, it's quite interesting.
McGrory.
I told me McGrory about the rules for music and the bungalow rules for turning music up. I wonder if you're allowed to speak loud. I wonder if spoken word is something that could be explored.
All right, okay. It's all these things that you don't think about. Like, for instance, we talked about schools going back and school bands. You can't blow a trumpet in COVID era, can you?
I know.
Well, you're aspirating or whatever the word is.
Oh, aye. So you could put one of the funnel things in the end.
A wee mask on the end of your trumpet.
Anyway, anyone tuning in, that was us talking about musical instruments.
Just in case anyone was in any confusion. But once the pubs, once the clubs, once the venues can figure all that out, then we'll see how it goes, Gary. But it'll be great because Paisley, we talked about that, and Piero mentioned it, and Jeannie mentioned it. About the Paisley being the breakthrough space, the breakthrough place for new talent. We can have that again because not only has Paisley got great talent in it, but we see the venues that are being developed. We see Paisley as an opportunity place for folk to come into and hone their craft. So, you've got a very receptive, if you're tuning in from outside of Paisley and you're thinking, can we bring our talent, whether it's musical, comedy or otherwise, Paisley's got open doors for you all.
I think Paisley's a place for starting something up. It's a place that you can come and live, start your business, start your comedy career, start your music career, anything. We're so well connected. Come to Paisley. You'll be made very welcome.
Absolutely fantastic, Gary. So just a wonderful, wonderful show tonight. A comedy special, and quite literally we were sides were splitting with Piero and Jeannie on earlier on. We'll need to catch up with her later on our she was streaming Facebook Live or something like that as well later.
She goes on and does her own thing. She's an expert at these online things.
Oh, she's brilliant, and she managed to get all her plugs in, her plays and her books and her new shows and all that sort of stuff. So she'll be happy.
We've got her book. We've got her book in the house.
Not read it.
It's not the most pleasant story, actually. Right. It's an uplifting story because of where she's ended up.
Yep.
But what she's went through is a testament to her character, that she's doing what she's doing now. It's amazing what she's doing now, coming through the life she's had. Absolutely.
And I love the way that she handles the trolls, Gary. She just sorts them out.
I've seen some that she's actually copied the guy's Twitter and says, "I'm going to send this to your wife in Wayne's."
Right, okay.
You just imagine the guy at the other end, the sort of abuse that people give her.
Oh, aye.
I'm going to tell your Wayne's.
Aye, I know. She's got thick skin and deals with it properly, Gary. So another fantastic show, folks. Thank you so much if you joined in watching us for the first time. It's great to welcome you all to Paisley Community Chat Show. And yes, Paisley does have a chat show. It's two guys that love Paisley, that want to shine a spotlight on all the good stuff. And we have interesting guests on, such as you've had tonight. So yeah, we do.
Yeah, the guests make it, Andy. I mean, you could have actually pixelated yourself and sat back as well, and Piero and Janie could have talked away there.
Oh, we could have just let them to it. Maybe they can sit in for us one night, Gary. We can have a night off. Would you reckon?
Aye, that's a good idea. We'll go down to Piero's and sit in his back door with some Peroni.
Now, that's a plan. Now, before we finish, folks, just a wee update on our Pixels competition. So anyone that's been following this one, we have announced a logo and brand design competition for Pixels. Paisley Cross La Scala. This is going to be our brand, our name for our new community cinema that we plan to bring to the High Street. PXLS Pixels, Paisley Cross La Scala. Now, we had the competition out. It's been running. There's been some tremendous entries coming in already. But, and there had to be a but, we've been contacted by a few art departments at school and a few teachers to say, our schools are just getting back and your competition is ending on the 17th. Could we please extend the deadline to allow some of the students to work on the designs. So we had a wee think about it. We spoke to a few other folk, and we've decided that we're going to extend the competition through until the end of September. Now, I'm going to take that one, Gary, because I set the deadline. I totally forgot a school. So,
but it's all right. We're in difficult. What's the word? Unprecedented times, Andy. And with unprecedented times, and with every deadline of every competition that I've ever known, it gets extended.
It gets extended. So we've extended the deadline, folks. So we'll be posting out on social media. If you know anyone that's interested in art, whether they're young or old, if they do it for a profession or they just like to scribble, all of our details can be found on the Paisley Trust. I'm looking for the link now. Here it is. Here, look at that, Gary. So
that's so we can get schools involved. So they've come to us and says, look, we're not back yet. We want to get schools involved. And of course, Caroline, I don't know if Caroline's still there. As Caroline's classes will be getting back, so there'll be art classes in and around the town. We want Caroline's kids to have a real good go at this. We want as many people involved as possible. Paisley Community Trust is about engaging with the community, and we don't want to cut that off in an arbitrary deadline with us thinking 17 sounds about right. It's extended because of the schools.
Aye, brilliant. So that was the end of September. So we'll update you all on social media, folks. And I guess we're at that point, Gary, where we find out who's on the show next week.
Me, maybe.
Hopefully. You've got that laggy thing going on again, Gary.
Yeah. I'm away again. I was well saying good night, Andy, but I've not worked out yet when next week's show is. I'm thinking we might have a young, raw musical talent show next week.
Sounds good. Sounds good, Gary. Well, listen, I think whilst the internet is still working for us, we're going to say our good night. So I'm going to start off and say, folks, thanks for tuning in. It's been brilliant to have you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, folks.